So first, let me thank everyone for their continued support of Western Heights. Today we're going to talk about Western Heights Board and the violations of Oklahoma statute. As many of you are well aware, in the past couple of months, our district has had investigations launched by David Prater through OSBI. The State Board of Education has launched an investigation through OSDE, and the state auditor is conducting an audit of our district. But prior to all these actions and the state school board takeover, we have our district pulling one more shady, illegal action. They decided on June the 14th of 2021 to issue Mannix a brand new fresh contract. Now a lot of y'all believe, because it says on the agenda that this was a continuation of his employment, which was what many of us believed up until recently when we were able to obtain the new contract. We all believed that this was a continuation of the 2019 contract, which was valid through 2019 to 2022. That is not the case. On 6/22, 2 days before, the state revoked, or suspended, not revoked, they haven't revoked yet, suspended Mannix Barnes' certificate. They signed him to a new 3-year deal that will carry him 2021 through 2024. So be clear that this is not a continuation of the old contract. This is a brand new contract. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Okay, the contract. As I just said, they voted on the contract on June the 14th, but the contract did not go into effect for Mannix Barnes in the district until July the 1st, 2021. That is a total of 7 days after the contract, or after, that was 7 days after Mannix's certificate was suspended. The board, excuse me, the board should not have entered into this contract at all. This leads us to 3 questions. Was there cause to believe Mannix Barnes' certificate would or could be suspended? Was there a need for to renew the contract at this point? Was there benefit to Mannix Barnes to enter into a contract with the district? Was there benefit to the district to enter into a contract with Mannix Barnes? We're going to answer those questions right now. And as you will see on my screen, I put up screenshots of both the contract, where the vote was on the agenda, and any other pertinent screenshots of evidence that we have. We're also going to forward this on to OSBI because, as you'll see later on, they broke multiple statutes. So, threat of Barnes' suspension. Did Barnes know that he was in threat? Yes, he clearly knew that he was in threat because on, I believe it was April the 12th, around that time, he went on Fox News for a live interview where he stated a threat had been made against his certificate. I've included the video. All you have to do is click on it. Let's go ahead and listen to it right quick.
The first and foremost here, what are your thoughts on this 90-day probation, and what are your plans in the next 86 days to get the district back in compliance?
Well, first of all, there's been no investigation done at all, which has shocked me because it's coming from a state agency. There's been no due process afforded not only Western Heights but myself. They continue to make all of these threats and allegations, even threatening my certification in one of the letters. And then, not only that, in one of the letters that was, they said that they had determined that we had broke Oklahoma law and...
Now, in that letter, and I've seen the letter, but I've not fully read it. But as you heard from Mannix Barnes' own mouth at that point, he acknowledges that there's threat to his certificate. Not only is there a threat, but the laws clearly lay out. If you look at Title 73, 104, 413, it says state school board and the State Board of Education's power and duty have authority to require persons having administrative control of all school districts in Oklahoma to have such regular and special reporting regarding the activities of the school in said districts as the board may deem needful for the proper exercise of its duties and functions. Such authority shall include the right of the State Board of Education to withhold all state funds under its control, to withhold official recognition, including accrediting, until such reports have been filed and accepted in the office of said board, and to revoke the certificates of persons failing or refusing to make such reports. That right there clearly states, we've asked you to come forward, we've asked you to come report. Now, Jerry Colclaser would argue, well, they filed the reports. Well, they weren't satisfactory and they weren't accepted. They asked them to come in, clarify in our office. That's another method of reporting. You remember in high school when you had to do oral reports? I'm literally doing an oral report right now, presenting to y'all. So by reports, it doesn't say oral, it doesn't say file, or it doesn't say paper. It just says come give a report. Now, it does say on in there, it says reports have been filed and accepted. If they don't accept your answer, then it wasn't properly filed. Then it goes on to say, if you refuse to do this, they can take such action as revoke your certificate. When you revoke someone's certificate, there's a due process portion of it. They felt that his presence in our district was so harmful that they needed to emergency suspend him while they took the action of revoking his certificate. So, for him to say they don't have the right to suspend me, they don't have the right to revoke me, if you're not following the laws, they have both. It goes on in Title 76, 189G, Licensure and Certification System, requirements for certification of a superintendent of the school and principal. Certificate issued by the State Board of Education may be revoked by the State Board of Education for willfully violation of any law or rule that the board or of federal or state law or other proper cause, but only after significant hearing has been given before the board. They haven't revoked him yet because Mannix keeps on playing dodge the hearing. So, Mannix being suspended is of his own fault. So, yes, they had reason as far back as April, 2 months prior to their actions, to reissue a contract to a man whose certificate was in threat by the state board to be suspended or revoked for breaking said laws, but yet they still entered into a new contract with him. Was renewal needed? Now, this is a question that the simple answer is no. Not from the district's perspective. There was no need to renew the certificate. So when you look back at the original contract, which I placed a screenshot on the side, or caption on the side, his employment contract ran from 2019 to June of 2022. June the 30th. He was good through June the 30th of next year under this old contract. So there was 3 things that changed. The time period. That means the date that ran through it. Instead of running through the period of time of 2019 to 2022, they switched the time from 2022, where the contract would end, till 2024. So it runs from 2021 to 2024. The pay periods also changed. It went from being a bi-weekly pay period, 2 times a month pay period, like a standard like support staff or things like that would go, to a 12-month pay period, which is my understanding how most administrators are paid on a monthly basis. Another thing that changed, and the most important thing to change, is how much Mannix Barnes gets paid at termination. So, prior to this contract, and we'll go into this in just a second, he would have had a bare minimum paid to him. That changes to a massive amount in the new contract. So here we go. Benefits to Mannix Barnes. On June the 14th, as I've said, the Western Heights Board voted to enter into a new contract with Mannix Barnes. This new contract tripled 3 times the amount, people, of the liabilities to our children, to our Western Heights financial funds. It went from the 2019 contract that said severance pay equal to the sum of superintendent's base salary for the remainder of the contract, or superintendent's then base salary for 12 months, or 12 calendar months, measured from the date of written notice of termination, whichever amount is lesser. Lesser, people. Lesser. That's the way most contracts go, is you go with a lesser amount because you don't want to put your company out there for liabilities that you don't want to take on. That means that if we had terminated him under the new contract, or under the old contract, it would have been $220,000. That was it. Here's your $220,000. Leave. Let's be done with it. Now, with the new contract, they play a little word game with us. In the new contract, it states all the same thing except when you get to which amount is more. So now we go from having to pay him $220,000 to over $500,000, $660,000. They terminate him. He gets $660,000. Now, the board keeps on telling us they're in it for the kids. But the only way you can look at this is they're in it for Mannix Barnes, because they just gave him a massive payday. You do a crappy job, you suck at it, we'll give you more money. That's literally what these two contracts say. Because why would you take a man who's ready to be revoked, which means he would lose his job, you'd have no choice but to terminate him, and since they won't admit that the state has not received what they need, it would be considered a unilateral, meaning the school board itself fired him. It would be a unilateral, which allows for them to pay the $660,000 to Mannix Barnes. Benefits to the district, zero, nothing. No benefit to the district. The only people that got any money, as far as we know, unless there's some underhanded shady deals going on, was Mannix Barnes for signing the contract to get his $606,000 payday, and Jerry Colclaser for writing it up. He probably billed us for like 4 hours, taking changed 3 words in it to where he could get his buddy a payday. So, and keep in mind that while this is going on, we have school buses that are sitting unrepaired, no teacher contract, mold growing in schools, sewage backing up, insects invading, children going unfed, countless, and I mean countless teachers leaving the district, and the community crying for 4 people to help us, and they did nothing but help Mannix to our money. They did nothing but give that man a big, huge payday. Nothing. They did nothing for our children, people. They did nothing for our community. They did nothing to save our tax dollars. They did nothing. They have literally done nothing throughout this whole process. So now we're going to go to a law that I've spoken with legal experts, and they said nothing can be done until the board moves on such action as to pay this contract by the citizens. Now, by the citizens, we have the right to file a complaint in district court. But this can only occur after they expend this money. And then when they expend it, we can go after them. And best believe we're going to go after them. So, this law applies in this area. They knowingly entered into this contract when they knew that the agreement was not proper. Now, if you go to item C on your screen, it says, such illegal payments of money shall include, but shall not be limited to, salaries or any compensation paid to any persons for teaching or performing other services for the district when such person does not have a written contract required by law or does not hold a valid certificate as required by law or by rules and regulations of the state of Oklahoma or the State Board of Education for the subject being paid. Any person receiving any illegal payment, knowing or having reasonable cause to believe such payment to be illegal, shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and shall be subject to the punishment described in subsection B of this section. So the punishments for such acts are shall have been and therefore shall be paid, shall be guilty of misdemeanor. Upon conviction of misdemeanor described in this section, the person shall make full restitution of all money and or properties misallotted, and by punished by a fine of not less than $1,000 or imprisonment in the county jail for not to exceed 1 year, or both such fine and restitution, and imprisonment in such if such person is a member of a board of education, shall be removed from office pursuant to section 1181, title 22 of the Oklahoma statute, or section 91 of title 51 of Oklahoma statute. So now we're going to look at, can a superintendent with a suspended certificate enter into a contract? Should the school district enter into a contract with a superintendent with a suspended certificate? Is the contract with Mannix Barnes valid? What actions can be taken against the board members and have violated rules, regulations, and laws? So, as I stated before, we're going to go back to the contract. In his contract, the first line of his contract after everything else, when it goes into the actual, not just how long the contract would last, but actually what's the certifications, duties, and responsibilities. So he had a responsibility to obtain and maintain a certificate. He did not maintain that certificate. That certificate was suspended, and they are seeking to revoke said certificate. So he did not get the certificate and maintain it for the full period of the contract. Item number 2 on it, where it lists duties, it says the superintendent shall comply with all lawful board directives, policies, rules, and regulations, and state and federal laws as they exist or may hereinafter be amended and adopted during the term of this contract. So he didn't comply with the state. He didn't comply with the school board rules saying that our policy is if something comes up, you bring it to us. He's broken multiple laws, yet they issue a new contract to this man. Even though this is the same wording from the first contract where he violated. So he violated the first contract. He broke the first two tenets of the contract he broke immediately in the last 3 months. he continues to break these rules, and we offer him a new contract to get him a $660,000 payday. His friends, Robert Everman, Robert Sharp, Linda Farley, Rosalind Cravens, gave him a brand new contract for $660,000. Over $500,000 for literally disobeying the law. Now, Webster's defines suspension of temporary removal as of an office, a period of suspension. It's just a stop. That means you stop being able to function. It's just like when a medical license is suspended or a contractor's license is suspended. You can no longer perform these duties while it's in suspension. And since he won't set up a time for a hearing for such revocations to take place, there is literally no way for us to know how long he will not be able to be a superintendent. His hope and prayer is that the courts will overturn it, so we're going to rely on legal action in his defense that we're paying for, by the way. We're also paying $20,000 already to defend this man that literally has done nothing for our children. So on top of the $20,000, we add another $660,000. So we're up to $680,000, almost $700,000 for him not to do what he's been hired to do. And once again, I revert back to the law that says if you do not make these regular reportings, you can lose your certificate. So why he thinks that this is a great way or a great idea to go about things dumbfounds me. And Jerry Coclaser say, well, it's in litigation, that they haven't revoked it. But Jerry, son, listen to me. There is literally no chance that Mannix Barnes is going to keep his certificate unless you make better arguments than you've been making. Okay, so where are we? So here, once again, this is just talking about the board minutes. So the board deceived the community. So down at up at the top, you'll see the agenda from this year's meeting. It says, vote to authorize or not authorize the continued employment of Mannix Barnes as superintendent of Western Heights Schools. That is the same wording that they use year after year, no matter which superintendent we have, to say we're going to do evaluation and see if his contract continues on or if we're going to cancel the contract and move on to another superintendent. This is required by Oklahoma law. This is not something that they do because they want to. This is something that is required under the law that they have to do in order to meet the accreditation standards. Now, there was no way for us to know that they were issuing a new contract. They didn't say that they were modifying the contract. They didn't say they were amending the contract. They said they were continuing on with with Mannix Barnes as superintendent over the educational system in Western Heights. That's all they said. Vote to authorize or not authorize the continued employment of Mannix Barnes as superintendent of Western Heights. I will also attach at the end of this video a video done by Pamela Chandler Duncan that clearly shows the board voting for this said item, but not a new contract. At no point was the community informed of a new contract, a modification to the contract, or an amendment to the contract. Furthermore, I present as evidence of their incompetence that they know how to do it. They know how to modify a contract, because if you look back to 2018, when they were doing a sweet deal with Joe Kitchens to keep him on so that Mannix Barnes could get his certificate, they modified Joe Kitchens' contract. Vote to authorize or not authorize the amendment Amendment is to modify the to amend of contract of Superintendent Joe Kitchen for the terms of May 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Also, fun little fact, don't know who Christy Watson is. We've tried to track her down. Don't know. She voted on this agenda, she voted on this agenda 9/10/2018. She voted on every single item throughout it. But she's never been a board member, never sat on our board. We only have 5 seats. They show 6 seats. It just furthers the incompetence that this board has. And they all voted to approve this contract. Or these minutes, I mean, not this contract. These minutes were voted on and approved with a 6th person on it. Now, is the contract valid and what actions can be taken? The contract is not valid. Under the Open Meeting Act, Title 25, 313, any action taken in willful violation of this act, which is the Oklahoma Open Meetings Act, are invalid. So the vote didn't count. They did not have the right through the board to present a new contract. Not only that, but this vote was done in a false way. Since the board knew that Mannix was going to face suspension, that the board knew of revocation, and these all occurred before the effective date of this contract. That contract should have been pulled. They did this under false pretenses for the simple fact that they wanted to gain a huge payday for their friend. Also, the board could face removal from office if convicted on any of these. Under Title 22, 1181, any officer not subject to impeachment, elected or appointed to any state, township, city, town, or other office under the law of the state may, in the manner provided in this article, be removed from office for any of the following causes: habitual or willful neglect of duty. They have refused repeatedly over and over to remove Mannix Barnes. They even went as far as to put a new contract into place to get this man a larger payday. Gross partiality in office. I don't know of any other superintendent that's facing suspension and the board members who are his friends go, oh my God, let's give them a new contract. Let's get them paid. Forget that the kids' school buses are breaking down. Let's forget that they don't have proper nutrition. Let's forget we don't have teachers in classroom. Let's not give them any type of incentive to show up and teach in our district. Let's give our good friend, Mannix Barnes, a $660,000 contract for doing nothing. Nothing. And finally, number 6 on this list, willful maladministration. Administrating falsely, improperly, not managing properly, not managing the funds to the most efficient manner. I would say giving a man that's going to literally do nothing $660,000 for just getting fired is literally the definition of maladministration. You do nothing, we give you money. It's a great day for everyone, except for the kids of the Western Heights School District. Finally, we are to what actions we are going to take. So we're releasing this video, this slide, and anything else that any other documents such as the 2 contracts will be released on social media and jetsoar.org. We work with great partners with the different sites, and they have done nothing but support us as we investigate on our own for wrongdoings in the Western Heights. Once again, we have no way of taking legal action until they move forward on this money. But when and if they do, you best believe we will be at the courthouse. Now, we do, however, feel like David Prater and OSBI have the power and authority to move forward with it. So we will be forwarding this information on through contacts to David Prater's office and OSBI. We will also be forwarding on this video and information to OSDE. We will also be forwarding on this information to the media so that they can inform any communities that may not be on social media, that may not be available to see what's going on. And we will also, as I just said before, we are also going to take any legal action that we deem necessary to stop and or hold the voting board members responsible if termination occurs and the $660,000 payment is made to Mannix Barnes. We will do whatever is necessary to stop them stealing from our kids to help their friend. We refuse to let Robert Everman, Bob Sharp, Linda Farley, and Rosalind Cravens help their friend while our kids suffer. Thank you for joining me for another video, and you have a wonderful...
All right, 8.3, acknowledge the executive session, return to open meeting, we'll do that. 8.4, I believe we can do 8.4 and 8.5 together, vote to approve the employment of the certified and the non-certified personnel. I'm open for a motion.
I move that we approve item 8.4 as presented.
I have a second. Did you say 8.4 and 8.5 votes?
Yes.
Okay. Second. I have a motion and a second to approve 8.4 and 8.5 as presented. Linda? Linda?
Yes.
Bob? Yes. Brianna?
Yes.
Rosalind?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. 8.6, vote to authorize and not to authorize the continued employment of Mannix Barnes as superintendent of Western Heights Schools. I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion we accept agenda item number 6 as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve 8.6 as presented. Bob?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Rosalind?
Yes.
Brianna?
No.
And my vote is yes. 9 is public discussion. I believe we have 2. Ms. Dodd?